What is the truth? Is it merely specific facts that we present to prove a point? Or is the truth something bigger, spiritual, consisting of greater verification? Although we have incredible sources to find the truth, we also have sources who can hide and distort it. The whole truth and nothing but the truth on CounterPoint with Garrard McClendon. What is the truth? Can you tell it without facts, or can you present facts without telling the truth? Can a story without literal facts still be true? Call me, 844-777-9311, and hit me at Garrard MC on Twitter and Facebook. At the CounterPoint today, I've got comedian Damon Williams. I also have Professor Preston and author and lawyer Stanley Robertson. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. I've been thinking about this question for maybe the last 6 months. What is true? I've gone to college, I've gone to seminars, I've talked to my friends. Nobody could come up with a good qualitative or quantitative answer on what truth is. So, gentlemen, I had to have the three of you in today, a college professor, a lawyer and author, and of course I had to bring in Damon Williams, the comedian, for some good comedic value to figure this question out. So I'm gonna start with you, Stanley Robertson. What is the truth to an author and a lawyer? What is truth?
Yeah, there's really no such thing as truth. However, at the same time, truth is everything. So in other words, truth is very elusive. I don't think you can actually define truth, because truth is really a function of your personal perspective.
So you think truth is relative?
Very much so.
Okay, so then why even have a truth if it's just relative?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. Because if I look at truth, it depends on where I'm coming from. If I'm thinking about truth, for example, in my profession, let's just say hypothetically speaking, if I'm thinking about the truth from the standpoint of teaching college, if I'm looking at truth from the standpoint of doing corporate tax, or if I'm looking at truth from a religious perspective, all those things, the truth is different.
It's different. Okay, before I go to the professor and the comedian, straw man concept. What is that? I know you've written a book on straw man fallacy, but what is the straw man? Then we're going to get to the professor.
Right, the book is called The Straw Man Fallacy. A straw man is a fallacy, it's a logical fallacy. So when you make an argument, obviously you have to have certain elements of that argument. The straw man is a fallacy which says that your argument is faulty. There's something wrong with what you just said. And the thing that's wrong with what you just said is that you took my argument, you restated my argument in a weaker position, and then you refuted the restatement, not the original argument.
In program evaluation, we call them type 1 and type 2 errors. And so we're going to come back to straw man a little bit later. Professor Preston, is there some such thing as truth? What is truth?
Well, there are a number of perspectives on truth in the history of philosophy, and one of them is the view that Stanley just articulated a moment ago, this relativistic view on truth. But the more dominant view of truth in the Western tradition, at least, is what's called the correspondence theory, which says that truth is a matter of correspondence to reality, or accuracy of representation. So that, for instance, if you have a belief or make a statement to the effect that there are 4 mugs on the table, that's going to be true if there are 4 mugs on the table. And if there are not 4 mugs on the table, it's going to be false. So on my view, since I subscribe to the correspondence theory, I do think there is such a thing as truth. I don't think it's just a matter of personal opinion or preference.
Does it have to be verified by more than one source, or can one person hold the truth without 2 or 3 others verifying it?
Well,
or does the truth just stand on its own?
The truth stands on its own. And see, there's an important distinction to be made from a philosophical perspective between the truth and our knowledge of the truth. Our knowledge of the truth requires evidence. If we make a claim that isn't backed up by evidence, it's not clear that we have a right to be very confident in that claim. It might be true just by accident, but we're still not going to think of it as a very respectable claim.
Okay, hold tight. I want to get to Damon. Hold on tight to the comment because I got to get Damon in here.
All right.
Damon,
Yes.
I've seen your show.
Okay.
It's spectacular.
Thank you.
And a lot of it has to do with you telling the truth. What is the truth, Damon Williams? And why does a comedian have to tell truth or truths to be successful?
Well, actually, there's a conflict there because the old heads called comedy telling lies. So, in truth, of course, there's truth to the story, but there's also fiction inside our truth. Now, there are different variations of truth as far as I'm concerned, because I want to be true to myself when I perform, because if I'm inauthentic, then I'm not performing it in my real truth. And then when I'm really doing my job well, they'll call me the truth.
Oh,
Like
wow.
that dude is the truth.
The truth.
You get it? So truth does have different, I say, variations within the comedic realm.
Yeah, much what the professor said.
Right.
So it's a relativity involved. There's a semantic element of, man, Damon is the truth.
Right.
Or let's say
When the whole time I could be lying.
you could be lying. Absolutely. Professor Aaron Preston is the truth. He's written tons of articles.
Indeed.
Or the lawyer and author Stanley Robertson is the truth. He's written several books. And so we're coming up with a construct of truth. Stanley, you had a comment to make a little bit earlier.
I was just going to say that I was having a conversation with some kids some time ago. There was 3 kids. We were talking about truth. We had read a book. In the book, one of the characters was lying, and we were having a discussion about that. One of the kids said, when I asked him what is the truth, what's going on with this particular character, he said, well, the truth is relative. He didn't use the word relative, but the truth is relative. And then he said that, for example, if my mom asked me, did you eat that peanut butter and jelly sandwich? I would say, no, I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with bologna. So in fact, I had a bologna sandwich. It just happened to have peanut butter and jelly on it. So for that kid, the truth, his mother wanted to know, did you eat the peanut butter and jelly?
Oh, so go ahead.
The mother's truth is he did eat the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The kid truth is no, it was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but with bologna.
So there were levels that the two speakers had to come to some sort of correspondence and agreement on. The mother had a concept, the child had a concept. Were both of them expressing the truth?
Yes.
What do you think, Professor?
Well, I'm friendly to the idea that both of them were telling the truth. At some level, there's a common reality out there. There are differences in the ways in which we describe them, and those differences of description can oftentimes lead us to talk past each other. I don't want to say that this means there are different truths for different speakers. It just means we need to do more work to understand each other.
And I'd like to say, in my household, Mama told the truth, and the son was in trouble. The peanut butter and the jelly is missing. I don't care what you put with it: bologna, bread, toast, crackers. Did you eat the peanut butter and jelly? So
Right.
yeah, now yes.
So
Mama's truth
Mama was
won.
judge and jury.
Right.
And it didn't make a difference.
Indeed.
What the
In my
child's
household, not in
doing.
the academic realm here.
So let's talk about aesthetic quality, all right? All of us have on what I would deem to be true, that these are nice clothes that we have on, but it's relative, right? We enter into a different culture. These clothes may be looked upon as being raggedy or being looked upon as being uppity, all right? So it depends on the situation. But does truth have an aesthetic? Oh, wow, I'm putting on my professor hat now. So when we look at the axiology of it, how do we qualitatively value things? So we can look at them from an aesthetic point of view. It's a beautiful cup. That's a beautiful pair of glasses. We can also look at them aesthetically, and we can look at them ethically. Does the cup fulfill its purpose? You see what I'm saying?
I think that if you look at the truth from an aesthetic point of view, as you described, when you think about the truth, you have to make a distinction between an opinion and a fact. If something is a fact, then we may judge that fact as being true or false. If something is an opinion, the opinion is not true or false. So if you say, that's a nice suit that you have on, that's your opinion, and you can't judge that opinion to be true or false.
Aesthetically, we can't judge it.
No, I don't think so.
So when someone says that's a handsome man or that's a beautiful woman, they can't qualitatively value beauty. So it's only beautiful to them.
Yeah, it's subjective. That to that person,
Come on, Stanley.
you can be beautiful.
There's some women out there. 99 out of 100 men might say, "Oh wow, she is fine." Okay? Or you may see a car drive by and it's like, "Oh wow, look at the lines on that car." And 99, that is sharp.
See, the problem is.
I want to get to this now because we got to get to this next segment. Can truth only be ethical? Can it be aesthetic? What do you think, Professor, of analytical philosophy?
I'm friendly to the idea that there's an aesthetic dimension to truth. And part of it has to do with the fact that I think that ethical phenomena have an aesthetic quality as well. There's something, going all the way back to Plato, there's this idea that the true, the good, and the beautiful are among the highest values in reality, and that they all come together at the deepest levels of reality.
The true, the good, and the beautiful.
That's right.
Okay.
And I think there is something to this, and I think that even in mundane cases of truth-telling, there's something satisfying and right about truth-telling in usual cases, at least, where if you contrast this with a case where you get an untruth or a lie, there's something jarring about that, something that is unsettling, and I attribute this to an aesthetic dimension to the moral value of telling the truth.
Okay, aesthetics and morality. I got about 1 minute left in this segment. Damon, I'm going to come to you because when you tell a joke, there are the words coming out of your mouth,
Right.
but there is the audience reacting to that story that you're telling, but there's this aesthetic quality that Damon Williams has to have as a comedian to make sure that people, get it, understand it, and are tickled by it.
Not only that, they have to believe it.
Explain.
So if I tell a story about an aunt or an uncle who was at a funeral and did something crazy, for that joke to work, they have to believe that actually happened, when in fact I made that up. You know what I mean? It could be a completely hypothetical situation, but my delivery has to be such that it makes it believable.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about what you do, and I believe that being a professional athlete is very difficult. I believe that being a scholar and a lawyer is difficult, but I believe probably deep in my heart that comedians probably have the hardest profession out there. Of course, that's relative, but to stand in front of an audience with a microphone and make people laugh, that's a high art form. We're going to get back to that a little bit later as we talk about aesthetics and ethics in truth. Facebook comments, what is the truth? Can it be told without facts, and can facts be presented without telling the truth? Let's share some of your Facebook comments. Renee Manley says, I believe that you should be able to support truth with the facts. Without facts, it's just an opinion. Helen Henning says, facts can be deceiving if only part of a situation is shown. What is done in the dark will come to light. We'll be back with more of your comments and more of Counterpoint in a moment. Tweet me, post on Instagram, or send me a message on Facebook. Let's start the conversation. Your voice is important on Counterpoint. What is the truth? Can it be told without facts, and can facts be presented without telling the truth? Damon Williams, Aaron Preston, and Stanley Robertson have created their own school on my show, Counterpoint. Gentlemen, thanks for staying with us for the second segment. Let's talk about fact and truth. Stanley Robertson brought it up earlier, and many times you can have a fact, but you can present several facts, but still not be telling the truth. How can that be? How can I be asked a question? I deliver facts, but I'm still not telling truth. Damon Williams, talk to me, man.
Well, first you have to start by running for president. Then you have to win the presidency. Then you have to get a spokesperson who backs up your lies, and you have to get another person to do that as well. That's my opinion.
That's your opinion?
Yes.
Professor Preston, you could tell 10 facts and still not be telling the truth. How can that be?
Well, I'm not entirely sure what kind of case you have in mind, because in one very straightforward sense, you are telling the truth when you're stating facts. And in one very straightforward sense, telling the truth just is a matter of stating facts. But of course, you can tell partial truths that, in virtue of being partial, are misleading. And so even though you are on one level telling truth, you are using that truth to cast misinformation and
I think
therefore
it still
lie.
goes back to a point that I made earlier, that a fact is not necessarily the truth if it's taken out of context. If you state a fact, that doesn't mean that you're telling the truth.
So you're saying that the
subjective.
truth is greater than a fact? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, truth is all there is. There's nothing higher than
Than
truth.
the truth. So is a truth somewhat of an ethereal, empirical construct, whereas a fact is something that human beings just spout to prove a point that may be material?
I mean, that's possible.
Is a truth immaterial and a fact material? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that a fact is something that exists, that we can kind of assume that we can universally agree on something.
Whereas the truth is different from that? We can't
the fact is a universal truth, except that the truth means when you state the fact, you are responding to the question at hand.
So in court, you're a lawyer. In court, the truth, the whole truth, and what?
Nothing
but the truth. Why in God's name do you have to have 3 forms of the truth to make sure that the person isn't lying on the stand?
Well, if you're in court, not telling the truth causes you to go to jail. That's called perjury. But if you are telling me something, even if you're stating a fact, if I ask you a question in mind, I'm looking for a particular piece of information. That our conversation goes one way, and then you're stating something which may be a fact, but it's something not related to what I'm asking you. That fact actually is a lie because it's misleading.
Okay, so is this and we don't have to focus on, certain politicians, but is that the flaw, or is that the allegory of the cave when it comes to politics? I mean, if you enter politics, tell me if I'm wrong, gentlemen. You know that you have to compromise quite a bit. For one, your life is exposed because you're no longer a private citizen, you're public now. The second thing is you have to please entities according to the demographic. That's a little frustrating. That almost already just sets up lies, and so, well, let's look at current politics. What do we do if someone's not telling the truth? What should we do as a tax-paying citizen if someone's not telling the truth? Damon Williams.
Well, in the current circumstance, first you pray. Because this is a lot going on right now, man. But more so, there should be a mechanism in place that can pull away a person that is not telling the truth continuously, especially if it's detrimental to the outcome of what their job is and what the people demand. Because we are their bosses. We forget that a lot of times. So say impeach if you want to go that route, or follow up with your congressperson, whatever. But there's mechanisms in place, allegedly, to correct that.
Because if you're not telling the truth and telling
Wait
good
a minute,
jokes, hold on. If you're not telling the truth and telling good jokes, you're going to get impeached by getting booed off the stage.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Well, if the falsehood that I'm telling is not funny.
And in the comedic world, funny is the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You brought that back. I see what you did there.
Yeah. In the professorial world, if you're not publishing enough peer-reviewed papers, other people outside are going to say, Aaron Preston, he's not the truth. He's not tenure capable. If you're a lawyer and you're losing every case, you're not the truth, even though you may be telling the truth. So you had a comment, Stanley.
You mentioned the president. There is no law against lying. The president can lie all he wants, and in fact, he lies a lot. They've done a study that said that the president lies 70%
Should
of
your
the time.
doctor lie to you? Should your doctor lie to you?
Your doctor should not lie. The president should not lie.
Absolutely.
Look, the president should not lie. I'm just saying that there's no law against lying.
But should there be consequences?
Unless
if I lie to my wife, there are consequences.
Look, there are consequences to the president lying. I'm just saying that there's no law against it. There are consequences, and we're gonna see the consequences pretty soon. Now, unless he's lying under oath, if you're in a court of law and you lie under oath, now that's perjury. That's an impeachable offense.
But what do we tell children?
There's things that could happen.
Don't we tell children to be truthful? What good are we as adults if we're not bringing the truth and modeling the truth to a society that cannot stand if it doesn't have the truth, Professor?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, the legal system serves a very specific purpose in our world, but it does not serve the purpose of morality all the time. And there are bigger moral concerns at stake here. And, you know, it is a problem when the president lies. I think we all agree about that. And you asked initially, what do we do when someone like this is lying? And the answer is you call him out.
Right. Yes, I agree. I think you called him out. And I think that as far as the truth goes, the truth, in my mind, is a spiritual concept.
Okay.
Because I think that each person, our reality is inside us, because the only thing we can see of the world is our perception of the world. And you mentioned the allegory of the cave.
We're going there.
Exactly, because in the allegory of the cave, the idea is that these people, they look at these images on the wall, and those images are their reality.
Right. They're seeing shadows, right?
Right, it's a shadow. It's not real.
Slaves chained to a wall, just going to give people the analogy quickly, chained to a wall, have never been outside of the cave. Sunlight comes into the cave. You start holding up cutouts of things that are in reality, but it's not the thing itself. A lion, a tiger, and then they believe that the reflection is the actual reality. Analytic philosophy, talk to me.
Yes, so not to pull rank, but I know a thing or two about the allegory of the cave.
A little bit.
And Plato's point in telling this story is not merely to illustrate the fact that we're all initially bound to our own unique perspective on the world. The point of the story is that we can transcend that perspective. The point of the story is that we need not remain chained in the cave looking at shadows, but that through the use of our minds, we can escape the cave and come to see reality as it is.
And I agree with Plato on that point. And that's why our idea, our perspective of truth is on the inside of us. Those guys who saw the shadows on the wall, they thought that was real. And it was real at that moment. But when they left the cave, they discovered that there was another reality. So both of those things were real to those guys.
So if we continue to think that something is real in that moment, and we continue to think that even though we may know otherwise, is that always deleterious or detrimental?
Knowing otherwise is the problem. If you know otherwise, now it's a lie.
Okay, but
the fact that they didn't know otherwise made it real to them.
Now, when I go to see Damon Williams, I know that my universe is going to be altered because I may have had a bad day that day. Okay. But why do I come see you, Damon? Why do I come to your show?
Well,
what's the reason of your audience comes to see you?
I think it's an escapism to get away from what their truth is for that day, for what their life, their mundane situation, their day-to-day activities, or whatever situation they're going through. Or they're in a celebratory mood and they want to take it to another level and be even more joyful. So my point and my position is to just provide the laughter and the humor based on what my perspective is of what I think the audience needs.
And you have a very strong way of creating allegory, if you ever see them. It's allegory. Your storytelling skills are on a totally distant level. I just love the way you present and your facial expressions. We can go on and on.
Thanks, man.
Let's talk about reality distortion field. I'm running out of time, but reality distortion field. Steve Jobs was accused of having an RDF, all right, where something that hasn't happened, You say, I'm going to make it happen. And then you get a team around you to make it happen. Okay. Steve Jobs was notorious for this at Apple. He was like, make the iPod smaller, make the iPhone thinner. His engineers are like, we can't do this, man. We've crammed a computer inside this phone. We can't do. He's like, reality distortion field. Make it happen. I only got 2 minutes, gentlemen. You gotta act quick. Do you believe that there are reality distortion? Do you believe that reality distortion field is a truth?
Well, absolutely it is, because what Steve Jobs was doing is he was using the notion that the thing inside of you can manifest itself in the real world if you just believe that it can.
Even if it doesn't exist.
It don't exist now, but you can make that happen. Everything that comes into existence did not exist until someone brought it into existence.
Architects, they say that a building is created 3 times. First in the mind, second the blueprint, third the actual building. I got about 1 minute. Reality distortion field, does it exist, Professor?
As a psychological reality, it does, but I do think it's a misnomer. It's not really distorting reality. I mean, Steve Jobs and his engineers were finding out more about what was really out there already, certain possibilities latent in the physical structures of the universe.
Yeah.
They were already there. He just helped them to believe that and to find it to be true.
Yeah. Damon Williams, I'm going to end with you. There was a time when you weren't a comedian.
Right.
You became a comedian.
Right.
Reality distortion field. When did you know, man? Were you in bed? Were you in front of a stage? When did you know that this is what I do?
I mean, I literally said it out loud. I said to my mother, this is what I plan to do. It was a gig I had for her office party. And after they laughed so well, I was like, I do now believe that this is what I'm going to do and this is what I will become.
And that's the truth.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, gentlemen. Thanks to my guests, Damon Williams, Aaron Preston, and Stanley Robertson. Telling the truth is good. Telling a lie is bad. But sometimes the context and circumstance alter the outcome, position, and purpose. Don't confuse facts and truth. The moral in the story may be more important than the actual facts. Thanks for watching CounterPoint. I need you to stay positive, keep your head up, and always be encouraged. Have a great week.